is Korey Rowe. This is Dylan Avery and Jason Berman.
Yeah, well, I guess we're just going to open it up for questions. I guess we should just address some of the main questions we get first. We know that the B-52 did not hit the Empire State Building. It was a B-25 Mitchell. We're going to correct it. We're sorry. Made a mistake. The other big question we get all the time is, well, where did the people go? And our answer to that is we really don't know. And we really need a serious investigation to find out. But we really don't believe that the people are where they said they were. So those are the two big ones, and I guess we'll open it up from there. Front row.
My question is, and this is what people ask me when I try to talk about it, they said at least dozens, if not hundreds of people had to have been involved in this whole cover-up and the events of the day, and why at some point there would be somebody who would come forward over time and tell the truth. And has it happened? Is it happening? Or do you think it's just a matter of time?
Well, I think there are a lot of whistleblowers out there. Check out Robert Wright, Calvin Rowley, civil admins, all pointing to some sort of cover-up. But at the same time, you really wouldn't need that many people. We come at it from the perspective that there's so much compartmentalization within the government and the military that these war games were a great cover for what they did. A lot of these people that actually did this probably did it unconsciously. For instance, NORAD and the FAA are having those war games with 20-plus blips interjected on the screen at the same time as the hijackings. So it's going to be hard for them to figure out which ones are real and which ones aren't. That's kind of where I come from on the NORAD stand-down. And then for who we can bring into court, I believe, is Dick Cheney, Wolfowitz, and Rumsfeld. Dick Cheney especially, because he signed that DOD memo putting shoot-down orders in his or Rumsfeld's hands right before 9/11. And then we have the Manette testimony from the 9/11 Commission saying he was in a bunker with Cheney, and that an aide kept coming in and saying, you know, it's 150 miles out, it's 100 miles out, the orders still stand. And Manette said that Cheney snapped at him and said the orders did still stand, and then the Pentagon was hit.
And where's Manette now? How come he's not in this room?
Excuse me, next person wants to talk. We have another mic here. Please come on up here, and if whoever wants to ask questions, you can line up here.
Yeah.
This question just came up. Is it? Question. Yeah. You did not mention the motivation of oil in your movie. Can you explain? The motivation of oil is obviously significant. I mean, it's a large part of what's going on, but we don't have to be redundant. I mean, you know, there's so much information that we could have put into this movie. Oil is just another aspect of it. And if you want to talk about it, if you look at the military bases and where they're located, it's directly coincides with the pipeline. Trust me, I've been there. You know, it's been said. Everybody knows that oil is a large part of it. There's just so much more information behind it that we just didn't dive into.
This question, in your knowledge, have any members of Congress seen this movie? Have you sent out DVDs to them? There's one in Congress, one that I can actually tell you, Cynthia McKinney, who was actually probably the greatest person in the entire Congress that I know of. I mean, she confronted Donald Rumsfeld to his face about the war games on September 11th, asked for a written report as to why our government basically dropped the ball on that morning. They were like, yeah, we'll give you a written report in the morning. Never got back to her. I mean, this woman has been constantly pushing for a real investigation into the events of September 11th, and she's been just ignored. As for other members of Congress, I mean, I know for a fact that there's tons of people out there who have taken it upon themselves to burn hundreds and hundreds of copies and just mail them out, just doing it on an hourly basis. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we even get orders from, members of Congress, so, I mean, we know they're aware of this information. It's just, exactly why they're not doing anything about it. I mean, we're just as puzzled as you are. I mean, this is their job. I mean, the government answers to the people, not the other way around.
Yeah, hello. I've been interested in various forms of transport from railways to aviation, and I know most planes today are sophisticated enough that the controls are actually operating an onboard computer, and the computer actually operates the flight surfaces. And I just saw something on the news the other day on Channel 2, local affiliate here in the Bay Area, and they showed these control consoles for drones. And I've always been suspicious for many years that these planes, in fact, one of them from another documentary is identified as an E-10, which is a U.S. Air Force fuel transport plane. It went into one of the buildings in New York. And I've always been suspicious that they were operated remotely, almost like, you have these model planes that could remote, operate and fly them, but on a bigger scale. That somebody probably in some vans secretly between New York and Boston or whatever was flying these planes, into the World Trade Center. And I wanted to find out if you have heard anything along this line.
Well, I mean, the evidence that the planes were not the ones that they suggested they were is pretty evident. I mean, we don't have a plane to check, so we don't seem to have anything identifiable at the Pentagon. And then from the videos of the second plane hitting the tower, all we see is the gray underside of the plane that should be blue. On top of this, the Pentagon and the Second World Trade Center plane pulled high G-force maneuvers that did not seem possible manually. And then we have the Northwoods documents from the 60s admitting to drone aircraft. And in the 80s, we have the video of them flying a drone aircraft of that size. I think the evidence is quite strong that they probably switched drone aircraft during the war games and hit the buildings with separate aircraft. To what hit the Pentagon, the speculation is there, but all we're saying is that a Boeing 757 did not hit the Pentagon. It's absolutely impossible.
There was something underneath the plane. There was one of the...
Well, we've seen the plot evidence, and until we get a clearer video, we don't really want to take a stance. I hear you on that, but I think just the evidence that it's a fully gray plane, and it's supposed to have markings on it, and not one video on one of the clearest days ever in New York, after all that evidence can show me that it's a, United Airlines plane. It's pretty evident.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to commend you guys on your effort here, and I'd like to also add a few details that I think you finally found a medium that you can break through all the static, because the ground zero's right here, obviously, in the cranium. Anyway, I wanted to bring up a couple of details as I've watched this several times that I think would help you in refining it. One is, either choose Celsius or Fahrenheit, meaning you need to choose Fahrenheit because Americans don't know what Celsius is. So you need to stick with one temperature to clarify things for people who aren't very bright like me. And then also, I like the way that you have a conversational style and the way you've written the script, but there are some things that don't fly, pardon me, for using that little phrase. And one of them is saying that the steel was broken into sections, I believe you say, a couple of feet long. The word a couple of feet long isn't appropriate. You should, be a little more specific on those things. And then we also have, you say that it's the first time buildings collapse due to fire. You need to be a little more formal and say steel frame buildings or high-rise buildings, just to be consistent. So these are things that will help you refine this into a bulletproof effort, and I just want to commend you guys on all the work that you've done here.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thanks for your interest, and we're working towards it. You guys will see a more refined project probably in the future.
Hi, I was wondering why you didn't include any information on who showed up at the World Trade Center and who did and who died.
I mean, the only real confirmed report we had was the MSNBC report that it was largely understaffed that day. But beyond that, other than that, and the CEOs being out to lunch that day, I mean, there's just so much kind of evidence on that, who was there and who wasn't. There's nothing
well, like certain people like Al Franken admits to have been called not to show up that day to work.
I didn't know about the Al Franken.
It was called a June call or something.
Yeah, I didn't know Al Franken got a call.
Is there evidence of that?
Yeah, there were people who were called,
well, I mean,
asked not to show up
mainstream
due to a Jewish holiday.
Well, like I said, the only mainstream media report that I've seen any confirmation, and again, we're trying to get as much mainstream media stuff to try to show people, is the MSNBC thing where they actually admitted that it was, understaffed. They really didn't get any specifics on it. So, other than that, the CEO is all being gone that day. I mean, that's the only confirmed evidence that I know.
A friend of mine suggested that perhaps Building 7 might have been used as a command center, like a computer control center, and that's why it had to be blown up.
I would say that's more than likely. I mean, if you look at it, Giuliani's local government all went there, and that was his emergency bunker, and everybody seemed to be in there fine until after the buildings collapsed. And then, everybody left, and then it collapsed on itself. So, it's only speculation now. We can't prove it. Beyond that, again, can't prove it. We need a real investigation. That's what we're trying to get behind. You got it.
I salute you guys. Good work. Have you guys looked into, or are you going to look into information from like air traffic controllers or pilots? That's all I'm asking.
We've received lately numerous emails from pilots and air traffic controllers and people that work there. And we have a list of interviewees. It's about 45 people long. And we definitely are looking into getting more of those people into it. There are certain quotes in there from pilots, and we'll see more.
All right.
Gentlemen, I myself would also love to congratulate you on this wonderful piece of filmmaking that you put together. I'm a filmmaker myself, and I know that this has not come easy. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how you decided to make this project. What kind of opposition did you have in gathering the information, and what the reaction you've had from the media about it? Tell us your story, but how did this come about?
Yeah, great question. All right, this is basically the whole story. I suppose probably what a lot of people want to hear. For those that don't know, this all basically started back in May 2002. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. No. I started writing. No, okay.
We want to hear.
All right, you guys can go home if you want, I suppose. But basically, in May 2002, I started writing what was supposed to be a fictional story about myself and my friends discovering that September 11th was done by our government. I mean, I don't know, it was a wild and crazy idea at the time. I figured if I was going to write a fictional story, it might as well be something, something remarkable, because I had a chance encounter with James Gandolfini, who you better know as Tony Soprano, because he had a childhood friend, Clyde Griffiths, who wanted to build a restaurant, and James had the money. James loaned him the capital, and in February 2002 is when he started building a restaurant. And I started working out there by actually scraping polyurethane off the windows, and I went from that to being a carpenter. It was kind of crazy. And then May 2002 rolled along, opening party, and James Gandolfini and I mean, we kind of bartended side to side the whole night, kind of like chatted here and there. I mean, I didn't really expect anything to come of it. It was just cool to be in the same room as the guy. And basically at the end of the night, around 2 or 3 in the morning, I catch up at the bar, and it all comes down to one line that he gave me, which said, if you want to be a successful director, you have to have something important to say to the world. And when I started writing this movie, I kind of, in the back of my mind, maybe thought that what I was writing was actually true. I didn't want to believe it at the time, which is why I said it was fictional. And then upon doing the research and looking into September 11th itself, it became clearly apparent that something was wrong. I believe it started with the World Trade Center. Someone had just posted videos of it, and I myself had never been inside the World Trade Center. I had been to New York a couple times before, but I wasn't as intimate with the World Trade Center as everybody else was, which is probably why I wasn't as affected by it as everyone else. So, I don't know, I just started researching it and started realizing, more and more that things just didn't add up, and started writing and started including that information over into the movie. And then the movie started becoming a documentary, so it almost became overwhelming. So it became a point in 2004 where I totally gave up on the movie idea. I was like, screw this, I'm a kid. I can't film a movie. This is ridiculous. I'm just going to make this documentary. I had a $1,500 laptop that I bought back in 2003, and just started editing stuff together. Just doing what I knew how to do. I didn't expect to be on here. I didn't expect to be here today. I wasn't doing it to be famous or breaking into the industry. I just wanted to make a movie.